What's up, y'all? It's Haylo. Today, I'm going to be talking about removing distractions and mental detoxing. I'm not going to ramble on here. I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it. So first, let's talk about what is distracting you. You can go ahead and think about that for yourself for a second, but I'm going to be putting some things down as to what could be distractions. But first, let's define what a distraction is. A distraction is a noun. The first definition states that it is a thing that prevents someone from giving full attention to something else. So we can think of distractions as something helpful because we stop focusing on the problem. And as much as we want that problem to disappear, it's still there. And it will stay there until it is addressed and dealt with. We can't get to the root of the issue when we look past it. And then number two, the second definition, extreme agitation of the mind or emotions. Now notice how I italicized both prevents and agitation. A distraction is literally preventing you from doing something and it's agitating you. Distractions can not only take up time and in some cases money, but can negatively affect our mental and emotional health. Here are some things that I find to be distractions. I'm sure all of you can relate. Social media is one. The phone, that can go hand in hand with social media. TV, Netflix, Hulu, definitely relatable. Video games, people, and most importantly, our thoughts. And I'm going to go into these one by one and some other slides. So let's talk about social media and the phone, the technology. Social media and your phone. So wait, let's talk about the positives real quick. Before I go into anything negative, I always want to start with something positive. So how can social media and your phone be beneficial? So I would say that in some ways we can use it for business, right? We communicate with friends and family, and we can use it to inspire others. So now, how can social media and your phone become a distraction? Well, just as some of these other topics that I will be going into, it takes up time. So you could be spending hours scrolling, calling, and texting. You can compare yourself to others. You know, that affects us, that affects our mental health a lot when we compare our lives to others. That is distractions for what we have in our lives. Provoking negative emotions, you could come across something or even get a phone call from from someone that makes you upset, like something that you come across make you upset, make you angry, make you sad. So not necessarily that those all of those are negative emotions, but it can really just make it not feel right. Temptation, you can come across whatever, like some shoes or a shirt, a jacket, and you might be tempted to buy it through Instagram ads or through Facebook ads. Whatever you look up, that goes right into your social media. So you might be tempted to buy something, or you can come across something that's provocative. You could come across, you know, a hot dude or a hot lady, and they might just be sending some thirst traps out there, and you could be tempted to get into anything lustful. And FOMO, I guess that can go hand in hand with comparison, but the fear of missing out. Let's say you're studying, but you go on social media and then you see your friends out partying, like, hey, I want to do that too. Or, why wasn't I invited? Things like that. So how can we not be as distracted? For Instagram, you can hide your like count. I know that's what I have to do. That way I don't compare how many likes I have to theirs or theirs to mine. Block, unfollow, mute posts or stories. I think when it comes to harassment, or if you really feel like you need to block or unfollow somebody, you do what you got to do. Muting posts, stories, I usually would have to do that if I feel like I might compare myself to someone else, or if I feel like it's provoking some sort of jealousy. I think that's what I meant by provoking negative emotions. Limit your time on your device. Put it away. Deactivate your account, delete it, or avoid it altogether if you need to. I know a lot of people deactivate their accounts for a little bit and then they go back on, or some people just delete it altogether. And I've heard that it's been beneficial to some people. Oh, and do not disturb. That's what I would have to do if I don't want any notification on my phone. Only someone who I would want to hear from. In my case, it would just like be my mom or maybe a close friend. But if you need put that phone on do not disturb, please. Like I believe that it helps a lot. TV, movie streaming platforms, and video games. So how can these be beneficial? Well, I think as far as like the TV, movie streaming platforms, you can come across some inspirational and educational shows, and you can learn from these things, and you can feel uplifted from these things. As far as video games, there are educational video games out there, and you can learn from it. So how can movies and shows become a distraction? As I mentioned in the last slide, these things take up time. So watching what Love is Blind for hours, seeing the T on there, or playing video games for hours, you just get lost in it. So it can take up your time without even you knowing, and you could be doing other things. This can affect our mood. This could make us feel all kinds of emotions. I would say that video games can bring about rage. Netflix, you could come across something that makes you upset, especially with these reality TV shows. They be upsetting me. Anyway, how can we not be as distracted? Avoid it altogether. Just avoid it if you can. Delete the app, cancel the subscription for the streaming platforms, especially. Like, it not only can save you money, but then it just won't be there. It won't be a temptation. People. So we need people, but we do not need anyone who is beneficial to our lives, right? So we need each other and we can't do things on our own. So that's how people can be beneficial. They can uplift us, but unfortunately, they can be a distraction in many ways. So how can people become a distraction? Worrying about what people think and say about you. That's a big one. Sometimes we get so caught up in our minds thinking like, oh, what does so and so think of me? Or I feel like the vibes are off. I feel like they're saying stuff about me and all that, which it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Trying to win people over and convincing them to be in our lives. You cannot force someone to be in your life. You know, people will draw to you just being who you are. And most likely, we don't even need those people in our lives, the ones that we try to win. They're not meant to be there. Proving yourself to others. So I think a lot of us do that within like social media, or people who we really, really like to be that way for getting a job. You know, you got to prove yourself in order to get this job, in order to make that money. Or in dating situations, you got to prove yourself to that person, like, yeah, I'm okay guy, I'm a good girl, whatever. That sounded so weird. I'm sorry, y'all. But you know, you don't have to prove yourself to others. Becoming like the people you hang around. I'm sure you heard of this quote before: bad company corrupts good character, right? So we could be around people who may be negative, let's just say. Then you start to become negative and getting caught up in the habits that they do, and they may not be the best habits. You become like the people you hang around. What steps should be taken? Distance yourself. Now, if you really love these people that you hang with or that you surround yourself with, you can still love them. You can love them from a distance. Setting boundaries. So don't be afraid to say no. Like, let others know what is and what is not acceptable. Now, the last thing we're going to go into, at least for what our distractions are our thoughts. Positives, right? Positives. Thoughts. We can think of something positive, right? If we think of these positive things, then it'll have better, what am I saying? Our thoughts. If we think positively, we'll be positive. If we think negatively, we'll be negative. So in ways it can be beneficial. You think of something good, then you feel good, is basically what I'm trying to say. So how can our thoughts become distractions? The overthinking. So dwelling on the past, replaying the same scenario in your head, repetitive thought patterns, and getting stuck in this never-ending loop. I can definitely relate to that because I overthink all the time, and I try not to, but it's just like it's so hard. Getting lost in the mind, daydreaming. I think that's a big one for me. I really get distracted by my own um, fantasies, I would say, in my head. Like, oh, that'd be cool if I was with so and so, or like, oh, that would be cool if I did this and that, and just I know that got me in trouble a lot in school, just daydreaming and losing touch with reality. That can definitely be a distraction for when you're trying to do a task. So what can we do? What can we do to shift our thinking, regulate our thoughts? So casting down negative thinking and taking control of those thoughts, self-evaluation, examining yourself, like thinking of what are some areas where I'm progressing in and what needs work. Love versus fear. So love is honest, but very safe. That's where you'll have clarity of thought. Whereas fear is when you don't feel safe at all and you feel like you can't be honest. Confessing your true feelings, so sharing how you feel, is out there in the open and into the light, so it becomes easier to deal with, and that goes hand in hand with vulnerability. Same with confession. It can be seen, it can be seen as a bad thing or as something weak, but there is so much strength to it. I promise you, like, when you're vulnerable, you aren't weak. Like, you're strong when you're vulnerable. Having the ability to open up without resistance and you sharing what's on your heart. Now, I would say it's important to be around people who you trust and to be vulnerable with people who you feel you can trust, but you have to be careful of who you're vulnerable around. And identifying good and bad patterns. So identifying what makes you sick, anxious, or worried, and eliminating those things, and identifying what is good, and keeping that pattern. Let's talk about the mind versus the brain. Now, it's important to know that the mind and the brain are not the same. They're not the same, y'all. I know it's crazy. Sometimes we think that they come together as one, but you have the organ, right? And then you have the mind, which is, it feel like it's more of a soul thing. The brain was responding to the person's thinking, feeling, and choosing as a stream of conscious and non-conscious activity. The mind is a stream of non-conscious and conscious activity when we're awake, and a stream of non-conscious activity when we're asleep. And this is a quote from Dr. Caroline Leaf. Please, I would just continue to read this over and over. I know it can get confusing. So I would definitely, I know I would probably have to go back and reread that. But think of this quote and take it in. Your brain responds to what you think. Isn't that crazy? Like your brain responds to what you think, which is your mind, and the way you think affects your health. But the way you think can transform your DNA. Listen, that to me is mind blowing. Get it? Mind blowing. Anyway, that right there, that stood out to me a lot. Like this is like my favorite topic, and Dr. Caroline Leaf has a book on this, which we'll get to in the end. But isn't it crazy that the way you think literally like shapes the way like your DNA is formed? It's really cool. The mind. So let's talk about the mind real quick. What are some things we can do for our mind? Prayer and meditation. You know, if we pray to God or however you do what you do, if you meditate as well, you know, giving your thoughts to God, addressing what is bothering you, you know, telling him like what's going on within you. And meditation, like just taking the time to breathe and be still for a moment, and to also meditate on the word, if that's what you do. Take honorable action. So do what you can to live at peace with others. Mind you, you heard the word peace, right? Living at peace with others so that you can have peace and they can have peace. Speaking kindly of yourself and others, you know, encouraging yourself, encouraging others. Kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul and healthy for the body. That's Proverbs 16:24. As we think, we change the physical nature of our brain. As we consciously direct our thinking, we can wire out toxic patterns of thinking and replace them with healthy thoughts. The brain. So let's talk about that real quick. What are some things we can do for our brain? So in this case, like what are some things that our brain needs? Like how do we make sure that it stays healthy? Doing a dopamine detox. You know, we like to do pleasurable activities that give us dopamine, but I would try like leaving out the dopamine and see how that affects your brain. Getting some sleep, breaks, rest, that is all important. It is important to recharge. So get some sleep. Staying hydrated, drinking water is very important. Eating your vegetables, eating fruits, you know, having a healthy diet and eating some protein as well. Break, I went by that fast, I'm sorry. But if you want to take the time to kind of just look at this for a second, sorry, feel like I rushed through that. Okay, next thing. Breaking bad habits. Break the cycle, everyone. Sometimes we try to break out of bad habits, habits that feel good in the moment, but leave us unfulfilled, and they can make us feel bound. So think about this. What is one habit that you need to break? I know that there are quite a few that I would need to define it. Moving on to this quote from Craig Groeschel, you cannot defeat. Yes, you cannot defeat what you do not define. I don't know why I keep doing that. And I went over this so many times. I keep wanting to say, you cannot define what you do not defeat. No, it's you cannot defeat what you did not define right here. Let's talk about some bad habits. So what are some examples of bad habits? Substance abuse. It could be whatever you're smoking, I'm not sure. Or it could be alcoholism. Those could be some bad habits. Digital media addiction, like I said, social media, just being on there for hours. Overspending, you know, we want to make sure that we have control over our finances and not overspend all the money that we have. You know, just having good control of our finances. I know I just said that. I'm sorry, y'all. Procrastination, that is something I can relate to. Absolutely. Just, waiting till the end when the deadline is here. I think starting ahead, that way you won't be stressed out. Because what does procrastinate create? Stress. So I recommend starting your projects ahead. Don't procrastinate, y'all. It's not fun. Poor dieting, eating junk food could lead us to feel sluggish, gain some weight. And poor behavior, is that the last one? Yes. Poor behavior, like I said, the way you think affects your DNA. Don't want to pass that down to our next generations. The payoff is now, the pain comes later. For example, all of these things can be payoffs. Like it feels good in the moment, but just imagine how it can affect us later. An example that I have is ice cream. Wow, the payoff is definitely now. I love me some ice cream. But your girl is lactose intolerant, so the pain come the next day or the next hour. Don't do that. Don't do that. Let's not have this payoff now. Just know that the payoff, if you do have the payoff now, the pain will come later. Let's talk about some good habits. What are some examples of some good habits? Eating healthy, of course, exercising, reading, staying productive. Now, let me just clarify this real quick. Staying productive is not the same as being busy, right? So, productivity, there is value with that. That is what I wanted to touch on before I moved on to the next few. Oh, I think that was it. Okay, so the pain is now. The payoff comes later. All these things can be painful. I would say for me, eating healthy, it can be painful because I don't want to eat any vegetables, but it'll make me healthy, you know. It can have some benefits to my brain. So the pain is now and the payoff comes later. You will thank yourself later once you do these things. Feed your brain, feed your lifestyle. Why resist a temptation in the future if you have the power to eliminate it today? Think about that for a second. Just think, why resist a temptation in the future if you have the power to eliminate it today? Not tomorrow, not a month from now, not a year, but you can do it right now. So do it. Just do it. Okay, now that we've come to the end of our slide, let's talk about some solutions. I don't remember if I said this in the beginning. I do not think I did, but I wanted to let you all know I am no mental health expert. I am no mental health expert. So it is important to seek some counseling, therapy, go to rehab, y'all. These are some things that you need. Talk to someone that you trust, whether it be a friend or a parent, family member. Talk to someone you can trust and to express how you're feeling, what you're dealing with. Learn a new skill and find hands-on hobbies, being productive, like I said, or, feeding your brain some new information, new knowledge. Giving, tending to the needs of others. So not just thinking of ourselves, right, in this moment, because sometimes we tend to think about ourselves and our own needs, which is fine, but it's such a good feeling to give to others. It feels so good to give. I would recommend that. That's what I do. I'm a giver and it feels so good. Even when I'm going through something, I know that when I give to someone, it makes me feel warm. Listening to positive, clean music. Now, in this case, it does not have to be words. It can be instrumentals, anything that's calming and relaxing, anything where you're feeding yourself some positivity is always good. And now here are some book recommendations. We talked about Dr. Caroline Leaf. She has a book called Switch on Your Brain. It's a 21-day brain detox plan, so I would recommend that. And More on the Mind, Craig Groeschel, Winning the War in Your Mind. I currently have this book. I found it in a Hobby Lobby. It was the last book, y'all. Everyone, there's like stocked with all other books, right? That one was the last one, and I got it. I got it. So I recommend that. I'm halfway through. I'm not done yet, but it is good, and I recommend it. So I will leave these in the description below. I will also leave in the description the mental health group that I have that is called Your Life Matters, because indeed, your life matters. You matter, y'all. So I usually just post inspirational quotes and put on these Zoom meetings and things like that. If you all have any suggestions on what other topics to talk about, please put them in the comments. I just need some more topics because I'm running out. I really can't think of any, but I have done friendships, which will be posted soon, and time management, which will also be posted soon. And in the future, I will be doing motivation, like how to stay motivated, and that goes hand in hand with time management. So yeah, leave some comments, y'all. And if you have any other valuable information that you would like to add about removing distractions, mental detoxing, please put it in the comments as well. Thank you all for watching and listening, and have a wonderful day.